Well, hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. And we're continuing our adventure in Portugal and also Spain. And, you know, on this series, we're also going to be in the south of France, too, because we're going to Lourdes. But today, we're going to begin with our little adventure in the beautiful, beautiful city of Coimbra. Betty, as we said before, this was my first time here, but you've been here before, haven't you?
I love the uniqueness of this and the architecture. Well, there lots of the towns that we go and visit are similar, but you kind of have a soft spot sometimes for one over the other. I like these narrow streets, and I love them when they don't allow cars to go down. You know, and everything about it is just beautiful, and we had nice weather, and
we did have nice weather.
God smiled on us.
It was beautiful. You know, this is a university town, and there is so much here to see. And excuse me, I just took the camera and I just shot about as much as I possibly could, even the workers on the street, because to me this is so interesting to see the daily life that's going on. Now, this is the old cathedral, as we can see right here, and this is a Romanesque. It was built sort of what they call Romanesque temple style from 1162. It's considered one of the best examples of the Portuguese Romanesque style. Did you know that, Betty?
Oh, I do now, but I know. You're so informative. Actually, I think the guide told us something about that too, and the architecture is similar to what we have been seeing all along.
Well, that's true.
You know,
and on the wall here, facing north, close to the door of Santa Clara, and I think Father Myron was just taking a look at. There's an Arab inscription from that same period of the construction, which shows the importance and the feeling of the community that lived in the city during that particular time. And of course, as we know, the Moors had taken over this area, and then it reverted back to Christianity again. So there's so much history here. It's absolutely incredible.
I loved where we stayed. We had the greatest hotel. We could go right out of our front door and walk to the Plaza Mayor there.
Not in Coimbra.
Oh, no, I'm in Salamanca.
Oh, you're already there.
I'm already,
I'm
sorry,
okay,
I'm progressing. I'm progressing.
I want to stay here in Coimbra for just a little bit longer, because one of the interesting things here, and we just got a couple of shots of it, the students dress so interestingly here, and there our people here were talking to one of the students that was there, and of course he was on his way on up to the university, which was further on up the hill. And this is you want to get to Spain already?
I'm already ready. No, but it's very difficult sometimes because some of them look so familiar.
I know.
It's like, I've been here before, and you haven't. But it's
and this can be confusing to people. It can be confusing to us sometimes, and also maybe the viewers as well. Because on this particular, we have to tell you that on this particular series of programs, this was a pilgrimage that we made to Fatima, and also up into France when we went to Lourdes. But right here, I want to point out that this is in St. Clare's Church, and this is the casket there of Queen Isabel of Portugal. And of course, she was very, very important in Portuguese history, and also in the history here too of the United States. But this is a very, very interesting place to visit, and we just didn't have enough time, unfortunately, because we could have stayed, I think, for 3 or 4 days in Coimbra, and there was just so much to see. So I do want to say that anybody that is going to Portugal, put that on your itinerary to spend a little more time than normal in Coimbra, because I want to go back and see some more.
Well, I think that's the way our trips are. We do try to include a lot of things for people to see, and then if you find something that's really of particular interest to you, and you'll know the ropes, and then you can go back on your own and do exploring at your leisure.
That's true. I have a lot of people that I know, and I've talked to them and say, well, I don't know. I don't want to go with an organized tour. And I say, you're missing a bet, because when you go with an organized tour, everything is already there. It's done for you. You have the guide. I mean, after you have seen everything, where you can go back and spend more time.
And we're really not that structured. I mean, we do have things that we see, but if we want to spend a little more time, I'm talking about in hours, not in days, we can do that and then just be a little later at the next destination, unless it's a hotel reservation that you have to sign up for or something. So we are pretty flexible.
And that's what makes our trips, I think, so much fun. And I really enjoyed this. So I do want to go back. I do want to go back to Portugal and see more of it. And of course, as I say, this beautiful, beautiful little city of Coimbra just has so much. And you can see the countryside now. We're on our way to Spain. And we're going. Betty was already there. Just a moment ago
I'm
to
sorry.
Salamanca.
I was projecting ahead of myself. Okay.
Well, of course, the first thing that we're going to do when we hit Spain is have something to eat, right, Betty?
That's always on the agenda. We're like kids, you know.
Oh,
when do
no
we
kidding.
eat?
I'll tell you, and we had the dining room all to ourselves, and this was really, I thought it was very nice. Betty didn't wait; she's already there with the hors d'oeuvres. I think we all
That's
are.
not just me. That's just not me. But it's not just hors d'oeuvres. You like to have a little refreshment
yeah, a
before
little-
dinner, and
Start off with a nice
Yeah.
soup too. This was
but
wonderful.
this was a very elegant place. You see how the service is. I love it when they come around just like that, you know, and put things on your plate instead of you having to pass the dish to somebody
Oh
else.
yeah, well, this is the only way to do it. I mean, that's
Just
the
like we
only
do
way.
at home.
Yeah, sure.
No, but this was nice, and I think everybody was really pleased with it. Actually, it looks like we did get, not except for me, I think the ladies here dressed up a little bit for the
well,
occasion.
you know, we're
always-
in another university town.
I
so,
know. I always say,
or
"Oh,
city.
keep it casual," you know. So, but I think you said about going back to Coimbra. Now, I thought I wish we could have spent more time in Salamanca. I loved the students. I loved the plaza. I bought a picture there.
A painting or a picture?
painting? A painting.
Not a photograph?
No, a painting.
So as we continue the Mass, we think about the stirring of the waters as we aim toward Lord. That's where the waters are also stirred through the faith of the people. That can they be cured? Do you want to be cured, Jesus says. And this man says, you know, for 30 some years I've been waiting for someone to help me here. Well, you know, sometimes people don't want to be cured. You know, did they make enough effort to get to the place where they need to be in their life to allow the miracles to happen in their life? And so, you know, that might be a thought in our lives. You know, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't live that way, I can't make the change. Well, yeah, if you don't have the desire, maybe you won't. And so those who have tried to help us along the way, be it family, be it relatives, be it the religious, be it priests, be it the catechists, whoever, to bring us to a place of healing in our life, spiritually speaking, let us thank God today for those individuals and open our minds and heart during Lent for the greater needs that need to be accomplished and met in our lives.
You know, we were so privileged, Betty, in having Mass with Father Myron there in this beautiful cathedral. You know, I shot a lot of stuff here, but we have a lot to show you on today's show, and we could just do a whole program on this magnificent cathedral in Salamanca. I mean, it is just it's beyond belief.
Ain't they all?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Oh, yeah, they
this
really
one
are.
And in Zaragoza too, where we're going to go. It just, I mean, these cathedrals were. They certainly earned the name cathedral.
You know,
because they're
yeah,
absolutely
they
marvelous.
sort of take your breath away when you think of when they were built, you know, and what they had to work with in those days. They didn't have all of these marvelous ladders that go up automatically, and you know, it's.
But life was a little different in
Of
those
course
days.
it was.
You know,
But
you
what
probably weren't hitting the clock like we're doing. You know, as much today. I mean, I think that. Well, I don't know. I think it was probably an easier time to live, and you took your time and built and built things the way that they were supposed to.
A great treasure, and a great tribute to our Lord and
That's
Savior.
true. Well, anyway, we have moved on now to Avila, and Avila, of course.
Let's go back to Salamanca.
Well, we'll go down on another program.
I
I'll tell you what.
didn't get to talk about the frog or anything that's on the
I'll
wall.
tell you what we'll do. No, but we'll make a program, just a special
Yes,
one
for
on
me.
Salamanca. Yeah, just for you.
Just for me,
okay?
but it was so interesting, and I would love to. Well, okay,
I
we
know,
do
but
what we can
have
do.
so-
huh?
We
okay.
did so much on this
All
trip,
right,
and so-
okay.
But these are the walls, Betty. The walls of Avila.
Oh, I'm glad you told me that. I would never have known that.
Well, of course, this city is very famous. It also has a beautiful cathedral as well, but it also has built over the place where Saint Teresa was born, church, and we're going to go into that a little bit later on. But first, we are going to walk through part of the streets here so that we can see a little bit of the town or city. I guess I should say city. They're bigger than towns.
The original design of the cathedral was in the Romanesque style that we will see later from the apsis of the cathedral. We will see that the apsis of the cathedral, the head of the cathedral, is part of the 88 towers of the defensive system of the city wall, of these ramparts. All the city wall has a perimeter of 1.5 miles, and inside it is protecting an area of 80 acres. As I say, the cathedral has also this military character, which also raised from the necessity of defending the city of Avila from the invasion of the Moors. You know that Spain had been invaded 711 by the Islam culture, and that they had established around the peninsula, and this war, the Reconquista, took place these 700 years until the expulsion of the Moors of the peninsula. So the city of Avila begins to be important in the 11th century with the conquest of the king of Castile, Alphonse VI of Toledo. He conquered Toledo and decided to build strongholds north of Toledo, and that would be the cities of Avila, Salamanca and Segovia. These cities would be repopulated at this moment, and people from the north of Spain came to live in these areas. A lot of knights came, a lot of Jews, also Moors established around the city, and they began to build the main temples, the main churches that we see today, and also the city wall. The central nave is 84 meters long and 29 meters high. It seems to be higher than it really is, because the first design was done in the Romanesque, but then this new style was adopted so that the central nave is not as wide as it should be for the proportion of the Gothic. The stained glass windows that we see in this area of the central nave are from the beginning of the 20th century, because the originals were destroyed in an earthquake that happened with the center in Lisbon 755, and that reached up to Italy, to Venice. We will see the originals around the main altar place, around the presbyterium, but first of all let us see the decoration behind the choir. So this choir was placed in front of the main altar, making a division also with the different social status, so that the priest would attend the mass in front of the main altar, in the most important place of the cathedral, and the nobility would be by the transept, where the crossing is, and the regular people would listen to the mass behind the choir. So that in Spain we say, voy a escuchar misa, I'm going to listen to mass, because I didn't see it.
Betty, this cathedral is the oldest one in Spain, right?
Yeah.
It was the first one that was built.
First one built. And look at the job they did with it. My goodness, they had a lot to follow after that one, didn't they,
no
huh?
kidding, I'll tell you. Now, all of these sculptures, there's a certain stone that they were using there, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, though. Plateresque?
Plateresque?
It's Plateresque. And it has a lot of iron in it, so it's amenable to carving. It will, it won't chip apart like some of the stone would be. And look at the carvings. I mean, they are, it just boggles my mind to think that this can be done with a chisel and a hammer or whatever, huh?
Really, and to think that, for so many hundreds of years, that these have remained, and they look like they're in just immaculate condition, don't they?
Well, they don't get any of the what do you get from
pollution.
The pollution inside of the church, like on the outside does.
Closed.
No, they want you to come in. But the cathedral has a regular plan of building. It's sort of like it's not called a basilica, though. It's called a cathedral, huh?
But it's built like a...
But it's...
Yeah. Well, now we're going to go over to the birthplace of Santa Teresa.
John of the Cross met Santa Teresa. He was 26 years younger than Santa Teresa, and Santa Teresa was looking for someone to start the religious reform of the Carmelite order in the Frailes. She had started the reform for the nuns, and she was looking for a priest. So they met, and Santa Teresa quickly gained him for her cause, and he began all this reform about the Carmelites. This is the only monument we have in the city dedicated to St. John of the Cross. And here is an extract of the spiritual canticle that he wrote while in prison in Toledo. He was put in prison, and there he spent 9 months until the moment that he could manage to escape from prison. And then he went to the convent of the Carmelite sisters in Toledo. There he was recovering, he was very weak, and while recovering he dictated from his head the spiritual canticle that he had composed while in jail to this nun. She wrote it down, and this is a little extract that I can translate for you. It says, it is a conversation between the soul and God. The soul is searching for the beloved, which is God, and says, Mil gracias derramando, spilling around 1,000 graces, swiftly he walked along these forests, and gazing upon them, alone with his figure, the woods he cloaked with beauty. Does it make sense? Yes.
This lady was just a really wonderful guide that we had, and of course we walked from the cathedral down, stopped at the little monument there, and then went into the church here that is built on the birthplace of Saint Teresa. And you know, we know that that Saint Teresa was the first woman doctor of the church, so she's very, very important in Christian history. And here we see the garden where Saint Teresa used to play out here, and this is just within the confines here
That was
of the
interesting.
church.
We could walk into this little area and peek out. It could only a few of us at a time could see it, but it was very, very interesting. You know, Marv, one of the things that really tickled my bones is I was reading something about this, and this author talked about inside the cathedral itself there were energy beams, and he walked in and he found these energy beams within the cathedral, and he says it was like a power, and it said he was overwhelmed while standing at these sites, and he would even cry with intense joy for minutes on end. I mean, it sounds kind of like a kook, but it sounds like a wonderful experience. If I'd have known that, I'd have run around the church trying to find those places. But anyway, I found it too late.
Let's listen now to our guide.
So this is the actual birthplace of Santa Teresa. She was born in this room the 28th of March, 1515. And she was born to a family of people that came from Toledo, people that were of Jewish ascendancy. This is something that marked her religious life throughout all her life. She proved to be more Catholic than others because she had this stain in her blood of her grandfather. Her father bought these houses. It was the houses of the coin that he had bought to a priest of Segovia. And in these houses, where all Santa Teresa's sisters and brothers were born. Her mother, being Beatriz de Ahumada, was the second wife of her father, Alonso de Cepeda. And the first wife was Catalina del Peso y Henao. Both of the wives were of good old Catholic families, so that the father also began a process of trying to be accepted in the lower nobility, not only because through that he wouldn't pay taxes, but also because through that he would be seen as honorable in the society. We have to think that when Santa Teresa is born, 16th century, the Inquisition is working in Spain. The Jewish were taken out of the peninsula. The Moors, at the beginning of the 17th century, also are expulsed of the peninsula. It is a period of a lot of doubts in the faith. So everybody could be accused, thank you, of being Jewish. if there were some wars between neighbors, for example. This is what happened to the grandfather of Santa Teresa, that was Juan Sánchez. He was administrating the land of the bishops. Of course, he had a very good level of life, and for that he was accused by neighbors. He had to go in procession 7 Fridays in a row to the Cathedral of Toledo, and after that experience he decided to move out of Toledo. They established in Ávila, and as I say, Alonso de Cepeda, his son, and his brothers married to good old Catholic families. So that through that they gained respetabilidad, they gained acceptance, thank you, of the society. In that surrounding, we have to think that Santa Teresa is born. We know already that her mother dies when she's 12 years old, and she's taken when she's 16 to the Convento de Gracia, to a convent for having an education. There, it was against her will. She was very busy playing with her cousins and reading chivalry novels and Roman books, novelas románticas, so that her father put her in this convent, said, here you get an education, and we forget all about these other things. So in this convent she meets Doña María de Briceño, that is decisive in her conversion to a religious life. She spent there 1 year, and after that year, when she's 20 years old, she enters the convent of the Incarnation, el Convento de la Encarnación, to the north of the city. There she will spend 27 years. It was a convent where 180 nuns lived together. There were many social differences between the nuns. For example, some of them of noble families had their servants with them. They could cook their own food, so that in contrast with other nuns that were so wealthy, and that, for example, during the winters had to go back to the parents' house to pass the long, strong winters of Ávila. So in that surrounding, this is what feels Santa Teresa. In the book of her life, she writes that during many periods of time they didn't even pray in the convent. So it was not a convent as we think of it today. It was more a place to put the daughters. They would be safe until they marry, or to have an education also. This is why Santa Teresa decides to reform the Carmelite order. And she's the founder of the Discalced Carmelite order. Discalced meaning that they don't wear any shoes. It doesn't mean they don't wear any shoes at all. They wear some kind of sole that is tied to the leg with some strings. Or yes, thank you. So Santa Teresa begins the first foundation, 1562, the convent of St. Joseph. So she's very much devoted to St. Joseph with a child. We very often are used to see the Virgin with a child. Santa Teresa is dedicated to St. Joseph. This is why we see him in this altar, Joseph with the child. She founds 17 foundations all along around Spain, the last one being 1582, the foundation of Burgos, where you're going to sleep tonight. Here we see Santa Teresa kneeling down in one of her mystical raptures. Very often she writes about these mystical raptures that she has, and it doesn't seem that she saw the presence of Christ, but she felt it. She felt always that the presence of Christ was supporting her in her foundations, in all of her life. She is the first woman being declared Doctor of the Church, 1970, and only 3 women have this title. Santa Teresa of Jesus, Saint Catherine of Siena, and Santa Teresa of Lisieux. And the stained glass windows also show us some parts of her life. In the window above is a scene that is reported by a nun in the convent of the Incarnation. And she hears a child speaking with a nun. So she listens carefully, because it is not usual to hear a child in a convent. And the conversation is like that. Who are you? Asked the child. And the nun says, I am Santa Teresa of Jesus. And who are you? She asked the child. And the child says, I am Jesus of Teresa. This happens in La Encarnación. And below we see another scene related with Santa Teresa. When she is a young girl, she already writes that she wants to gain the heaven. And what easier death, she thinks, than go and fight against the Muslims and gain the heaven in that war. So she escapes from home with her young brother, Rodrigo, and fortunately the uncle finds them on time and brings them back home. We see the 3 stars that represent the coat of arms of the Carmelite order, and to the right we see the coat of arms of the family name of Santa Teresa, Teresa de Cepeda y Ahumada. To the left below we see the coat of arms of her being declared Doctor of the Church in 1970, and to the right of the figure of Santa Teresa we see the coat of arms of the military that she is patron saint of. In the center we see the Santa Teresa as a writer. She has the feather and the book she is writing. She was a very big, important writer of the Spanish literature. She wrote, the main works are the book of her life. It's like an autobiography of her life that goes up to the first foundation in 1562. She wrote it in 65, and also she writes about the foundations of the different convents and how she had to struggle to do them. And she writes also the most important mystical writing, which is the Las Siete Moradas. Las Moradas, which is the 7 steps towards spirituality, towards the center of God. The godfather of Santa Teresa used to live here, Núñez Vela, and today, as I said, many of these beautiful buildings of the 16th century have been transformed into official buildings. This is where the court is. And we see this man in green, dressed in green, which is the La Guardia Civil. They are protecting probably some important personality is in there, like the major or I don't know. Very beautiful, the facade, and the entrance of these beautiful palaces of the 16th century are always placed at one side of the building, never in the center, because the center there's always inside a patio, so that the enemy doesn't have a way straight to the patio. Always it could be protected by putting the entrance to one side, so that there is never a view straight to the patio. Very beautiful, these long columns and the decoration of coat of arms of the family.
Well, Betty, it was very interesting on today's show, and we have much more to go in the following weeks. But it's just about time for us to say goodbye. But before we do, how about giving everybody your telephone number, because we have some wonderful trips coming up.
Yeah, I will be happy to do that. 559-488-7443. Hope to hear from you.
You bet. Hey, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.